living with Tommy Dunn?
Well, I can tell you all the shit I got from all the guys on the team. Like, I was called Tommy's son, this and that. So we, like, Ryan Connolly was the worst. He would give me shit constantly. He's like, you're living with a fucking gaffer. Experience, I'll say, is, aside from all like the success on the field, the first game of the season against Longford, it was like one of our biggest crowds of the year, close to a sellout. So we have the president of Ireland, who's from Galway. He comes over, he shakes everybody's hand. He's at the game. He's a big supporter of Galway United. And then the first game, the fans obviously took a liking to me. So like the main supporters section was a large portion of the game. They were chanting USA,
yeah.
USA. So basically, when I got to Galway, I was on a holiday visa, 3 months, and in those 3 months, I signed a professional contract, which should never have been allowed. Never. You're supposed to get a work permit to have a professional contract in a foreign country. But what they did was the FAI, for some reason, approved the contract without a work permit. They shouldn't have done that. The FAI, thank you, FAI, for allowing that to happen. But I'm there for 3 months, and my 3 months is over in April. So Ronan Coleman, who we discussed on the Vinny podcast a little bit, a big supporter of the club, he worked in kind of the government offices type thing, one of those type jobs. So we would go in every 3 months and file an appeal to have my holiday visa extended. And in Ireland, the rule is if your visa extension gets denied, you can appeal it. And you don't have to leave the country pending appeal. So what happened in April? We filed an extension. This is the most Irish. This is the most Irish story ever. I can't believe I forgot it. So we file an appeal for an extension. Then we get it back probably in June, we'll say. Denied. We're like, all right, we'll just file another one. We file another appeal. I get it back in maybe August. Denied. We're like, all right, no worries. We'll file another appeal. We're appealing the same thing, an extension of the holiday visa. Finally, and this is the weirdest part, the final time we apply for it or we appeal for it, it gets granted. So they said they accepted the extension of the holiday visa, and it was like 3 days before I was leaving. It was after the season had finished. So I went like literally the day before my flight. I had to get my passport stamped just so like I was legally here in the country the whole time and get approval. Because at that time, Tommy already wanted me back for the following season. So we were going to do it legitimately the second time, like get a work permit, do all that, setting up a game. Jersey Express against Maccabi Haifa under 23s. It wasn't the first team, but under 23s. So I was like, okay, great. Like, that's cool. Like, it's an opportunity in front of professional scouts. That's kind of how I looked at it. And the game was played, it was before Christmas. I want to say like December 15th, something along those lines. And I get to the game and I go to the Jersey Express locker room and Golly's like, hey, you're not in here, you're in there, which was with the Maccabi Haifa players. And I was like, this is weird, but I mean, okay, like I'll go play with them. So I just went over, changed, I put on whatever Maccabi Haifa gear, and I go out, warm up with them, play the game. It was me and Noah Sadawi.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that name. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Yep.
But he's still playing. He played with them that night, and he's still over playing in Africa. He's had like maybe
South Africa or something, maybe?
South Africa. He's played in some top leagues in the Middle East and also in Africa.
Yeah.
And so we both played that night, and we both actually scored for Maccabi Haifa against Jersey Express. We won the game 3-2. Like, I mean, it went reasonably well. But, I mean, I didn't think too much of it. But the MLS draft is like January 22nd, we'll say, or whatever the day was. And I didn't expect to be drafted. I was like, I had a decent year at Binghamton, like all region. Like, I scored a decent amount of goals at Binghamton, but we weren't a great team. We didn't make the NCAA tournament. I knew I was good in the PDL, and Reading obviously took an interest in me, which is Philadelphia Union's affiliate, but I still didn't expect to be drafted. I thought there were more good players out there. I just wouldn't have been included, and Maccabi Haifa was my route. But then I think my flight was scheduled for like the 26th, and then it was already scheduled. And then on the 22nd, I get drafted by the Union. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Like, like when you're a kid, when I was a kid anyway, MLS was like the goal. Like, it was before the Premier League, because the Premier League wasn't on every Saturday morning like it is now. I went to MLS game. I went to Metro Stars games as a kid and watched Clint Mathis, watched Tim Howard, watched like Josie Altidore was on the team. That, like, there were so many guys that I looked up to from that Metro Stars, Red Bull kind of era. And MLS was kind of the pinnacle of professional soccer in my mind. So I was faced with this decision, and I was like, geez, this is tough. Like, what do I do? Do I go? And don't get me wrong, like, I was a low round draft pick, so it was a trial. That's all it was with the Union.
Right.
There was no guarantees at all. I was most likely going to be cut. The Union actually had a lot of young strikers at the time. They had Chandler Hoffman, Antoine Hoppenau, had Sebastian Letou was there. They had a lot of strikers, and a lot of strikers that kind of were similar to me, that they already had under contract. So it would have been a very tough situation. But I wonder what would have happened if the Union never called me. So I got drafted. I saw on my computer, and the Union never, like after a draft in the NFL, you see like, so Bill Belichick's on the phone, like, welcome to New England. Like, I never got that call, and I thought it was weird. But it kind of made me think, like, maybe they're not that, maybe they don't really care. So I actually reached out to Leo Fernandez, because he was at Stony Brook, like we discussed, and he was drafted the round after me with the Union. So I reached out to him. I think it was like on Facebook. I was like, hey, have you talked to the Union? He's like, this is maybe the day or two after the draft. He's like, yeah, I'm already here. I took the train from New York. Like, I was like, did they call you? And he's like, yeah, they called me. Like, they told me all the, like, what hotel to be in, all the different, like, logistics of the trip. Oh, wow. And I was like, this is weird. They never even called me.
Right.
And maybe I should have asked more questions. I should have been like, what is going on here? Why are you not calling me? Why are you not, you drafted me? Like, what was the point drafting me if you're not even going to bring me to preseason? Even for a couple days. But golly, what I found out later was Golly ended up, so Brendan Burke, who was the assistant coach with the Union and the head coach with the Reading, he asked Golly for my number. And Golly told him that I'm going to Israel. Like, I will not be coming to the Union preseason. Small town club. And when we won regionals and state cup and all that, we would be going up against these teams that had 10 Division I recruits. And then we were just kind of this small town, like Bad News Bears. And it's something that I always will look back on with pride, because I feel like it's something that my dad was the coach from under 8. I was always playing, and it's something that we built kind of as a family. And we had a few guys that were with us. From playing high school soccer was such a great experience for me. From a standpoint of, like, my school, we had a lot of fans. There was a lot of attention on the games. And it kind of, even though it was not nowhere near the level, it kind of helped build me for the college level and the next the professional level, in a sense, because there was pressure on these games, especially when we played our main rivals. And I grew up with all the kids I played with, and we had a really good team, especially my senior year. And it's one of the we talk about the cup final. If I could pinpoint two kind of portions of my career that I'd want to redo again and try to win. One would be the cup final with Galway, and the other would be my senior year. We won sectionals, but then we lost in the Final Four for New York State Final Four. Yeah. And those are kind of the two moments that I look back on, and I'm like, I really wish I could do again. But